Happy Purple Tuesday, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we celebrate accessibility every day, everywhere, for everyone. My name is Charlene Overend and I lead the Purple Tuesday movement. A visual description of myself. So I am a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman and I'm wearing a purple dress with a silver heart locket. And to my left, I would like to invite Mike Adams to talk.
Thank you, Charlene. Hi, I'm Mike Adams. I'm creator and founder of Purple Tuesday. And a visual description, I have white hair or going white hair, and I blame it on Purple Tuesday. And a white beard. I'm wearing a white and purple check shirt and black trousers, and I'm a man of short stature. And I'm absolutely delighted to be celebrating Purple Tuesday today. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the origins of Purple Tuesday for those who haven't heard about it before. And it was a trip to a shopping centre back in 2017 with my non-disabled partner. And when I go shopping, I always utilise my wheelchair. And on that day, we went into 27 shops, and in 23 of the 27 shops, the frontline staff either ignored us totally or only spoke to my non-disabled partner. And we realized pretty quickly that it wasn't direct discrimination. It was this unintentional fear of either saying something or doing something that would offend me. And actually, the default position was to swerve the conversation altogether. But the reality was that only 4 shops that day got all my money because I wanted to feel welcomed as a customer who happened to have a disability. And that led us really to creating Purple Tuesday, which was to support organisations to think about accessibility commitments that they could make, which would drive a greater customer experience for people and their families, and also create access to the purple pound, the purple dollar, which is increasingly important. And it's funny that back in 2017, maybe a pioneer, whatever, but it was just a really good example. And now today, it is a global event. And later today, you will be hearing from the likes of Jessica Smith, Tanzila Khan, Fareed Shroff, Martin Powell, Laura Gasson, and Shelley Cowan, that talking about their own experiences, similar to mine, but different, but shows that Purple Tuesday is a truly global event. It impacts disabled people and their families across the world. So before we introduce them, Charlene, I thought it'd be useful to talk, if you could talk a little bit about some facts and stats, and I think we're then going to talk a few bits about accessibility hints and tips.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. So really we wanted to just hone in specifically and focus in on why accessibility is important. So some of the statistics around that, 16% of the world population and 24% in the UK are estimated to be living with a disability. And what that actually means in real terms, when you think of the disabled individual or the person with the disability and you add their family into that, you're looking at 33%, a third of the world population that makes up this disability community. And that's not insignificant when we think about the opportunity to, to engage with that community as a customer. And then when we deep dive into sort of the disability community a little bit more, we know that 17% of people with disabilities, they're the ones that are born with their disability. And why is this important for organizations in particular is that, 83% of people that have a disability, they have acquired that disability in their lifetime. And therefore, organizations need to think about future-proofing their businesses from the perspective of employees acquire disabilities, but also their customers that will acquire those disabilities as well. So accessibility should really be important. And 80% of the disability community, or 80% of those with disabilities, have a hidden impairment. So you wouldn't necessarily know by just looking at them that they have an additional need. So again, it's really important to think beyond ramps and beyond lifts when we think about the disabled consumer. Another interesting fact, and this relates actually to the hidden impairment, hidden disability aspect, only 8% of those with disabilities are actually wheelchair users. And this, has to be, taken into consideration at a global level more, because the international sign that we see that recognizes and that is associated with disability is the wheelchair. And whilst wheelchair users are, extremely important in us delivering a good experience for, we also have to think of the other 92% of that community and what their needs are. And the spending power, the purple pound or the purple dollar of this disability community is significant. So globally, it's valued at $18 trillion a year. And we also know that only 10% of organizations actually have a dedicated plan in place to access that market. And excitingly today, for those who have been following us already on social media and in the press, we were able to announce an increase in the purple pound in the UK by quite a considerable amount since the last records were published, or the last data was published. So we've grown from a 274 billion purple pound market in the UK to 446 billion. So I mean, a huge increase of 30%. So again, looking across the globe, that will be reflective there as well. And so an opportunity that organizations really need to start to embrace. And what do we mean by how organizations can look at this more effectively? We know that 75%, or 3 in 4 people with disabilities and their families, have actually walked away from and not returned to a business after they received poor or inaccessible customer experiences. So think about the loss that your business would have had in terms of like delivering that good experience if accessibility had been already embedded within that experience. Then that family and that disabled customer would have returned. And in terms of like a really strong business case that goes beyond that, we know that organizations that have actually invested in and are delivering disability inclusive and accessible experiences, they're actually outperforming their peers by 1.6 times more revenue being generated every year. And so again, another really strong reason for organizations to invest in accessible and disability inclusive practices. So what do we mean by accessibility today? What is it really about? But at its core, it's about designing and creating environments, products, services, and information in a way that allows everyone, regardless of their abilities or their disabilities, to access them. Fundamentally, it is about inclusion, it's about equity, and it's about dignity. From an organizational perspective, accessibility needs to be considered and it needs to be prioritized across what we call our 3 purple pillars of people, policy and process, and place. So I'm going to spend just a little bit just to talk a little bit more detail in that, and what do we mean by this? So accessibility within the purple pillar really needs to be at the heart, because it's about creating an environment where everyone can thrive at work, or indeed thrive from a customer perspective. It's about having an organization that promotes respect for diverse needs. It offers training on accessibility and best practices. It offers training and opportunities to learn about unconscious bias, for example. And if you do that, you will really build a culture of inclusion in the workplace, which in turn will translate to much better and more inclusive customer experiences. So then if we take the place pillar, accessibility ensures that both the physical and the digital environments will work for everyone. So when you look at the physical spaces, and we mentioned this already, either in a customer or employee facing environments, you should be providing at a minimum things like the lifts and the ramps, accessible toilets, tactile signage, and what we've started to see now an increase in is things like quiet areas and quiet zones, so that you are meeting the diverse needs of people that you serve and you employ. And then whenever we look at our digital environments, our digital spaces, it's about making your websites, your apps, and internal systems easy to use for all. And for organizations that look to achieve, accessibility standards such as WCAG, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guideline standards, you are really demonstrating that you are committed to accessibility inclusive environments. And then finally, to make accessibility stick, it must be part of your organizational governance, and it's not seen as a checkbox exercise. And this means really about complying with key standards such as the Equality Act 2010 in the UK, the ADA Section 5, the European Accessibility Act, and indeed again like the WCAG standards. And in order to be able to achieve and work towards that, accessibility needs to be embedded into the policies, into policies for recruitment, for onboarding, and for service delivery. We're looking at organizations committing to continuous improvement by committing to reviewing policies regularly, listening to feedback from disabled stakeholders, including employees and customers. And organizations must remember that accessibility isn't just a one-off time effort, a one-off fix. It's about, ongoing commitment and ongoing promise to create fair and inclusive experiences for all. So that leads us now in nicely to some tips about how you can take responsibility every day for being more inclusive and accessible.
And I think the top tip number one is ask. Don't assume. And I think it's always more respectful to ask a person with a disability if they need help, and how that help can be provided, rather than making the assumption that they definitely need it.
Absolutely. Top tip 2, follow the 6-second rule. So this refers to the practice of just pausing for at least 6 seconds after asking a question or making a statement. And this is especially important when you're engaging with somebody who is neurodivergent, for example, because this pause allows that time for the person to process the information and to formulate a response and to feel comfortable engaging in the conversation without pressure or interruption.
Number 3, speak directly to the disabled person, not to their companion or partner. And I just take us back to the start of Purple Tuesday in that shopping centre, and the fact that frontline staff either talked to no one or they only spoke to my non-disabled partner. And it's really important that disabled people feel valued in all respects.
Top tip 4, be prepared to slow down and repeat instructions when communicating. So this approach ensures that individuals that have the sufficient time to understand and again process the information being shared. If instructions are complex, breaking them down into smaller, bite-sized, manageable steps can really significantly improve clarity and reduce overwhelm, reduce that level of anxiety, and it just really supports comprehension. So, slow down and be prepared to repeat.
Top tip number 5, Always announce yourself before touching or assisting a blind person. If you notice that a blind person who may need assistance, go back to the question about ask if they'd like to take your arm and guide them by lightly touching their elbow. Never grab their arm or their hand.
Top tip 6. So don't distract, guide, or service dogs. They are working and they need to stay focused to keep their handler safe. So if you're walking with someone who uses a guide dog, stay on the opposite side of the dog to avoid getting in its way, and never pet or call the dog while it is working.
Top tip number 7, bring yourself up to eye level. Where possible, when talking to someone who is a wheelchair user or is short in stature like myself, being at eye level really helps create a more inclusive, comfortable interaction for both people, for example. And I always say to people, please sit. Don't try to kneel or bend over, because actually it's about you as well as me.
Top tip 8. Be aware and be mindful that some people, especially those who are neurodivergent, may be sensitive to things like bright lights, loud sounds, or strong smells. So even if those things don't affect you, it is thoughtful to check before bringing them into shared spaces. So small changes like dimming the lights or lower noise or avoiding scented products or smelly lunches, for example, in the workplace, can make a huge difference to the comfort of the environment for everyone.
Top tip number 9, make sure all of your communications are accessible. And the principles are: use clear, simple language that's easily readable fonts, good color contrasts, and always add alt text to images for screen readers. And in meetings, increasingly offer captions or sign language if needed, and always share accessible files.
And finally, top tip number 10, nothing about us without us. So this is a really powerful principle that emphasizes the importance of including disabled people, people with disabilities, in decisions that affect their lives. So this really means it's about actively involving them in conversations, in the planning and policy making, especially if matters related to disability, accessibility, and inclusion. Ask, get them involved. So you've now got the tools to make the difference. So by putting these tips into practice, you really can help create better, more inclusive experiences for everyone every day. Great. And now we have the fabulous opportunity to come and celebrate and recognize Purple Tuesday with our Purple Tuesday ambassadors who are joining us today from all across the globe. Happy Purple Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Purple Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Great. So what we'll do, just to let everybody else know who is here, let's go around the virtual room. Can you each introduce yourselves? Share a little bit about your disability and maybe a little bit about your experience as a customer with a disability. Let's start with you, Tanzila.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm super happy today to be part of this panel. Happy Tuesday to everyone out there, because all in all, we all are allies of good customer service when it comes to disability. I'm Tanzila. I was born with a disability, so my lived experience plays an expertise with me. Currently, I'm working with private sector companies on making them inclusive, and I often do trainings with them using a board game called Whoopie Town that I developed. So it's exciting. And this is the work I'm currently doing, coming straight out of my own pain points. But I think we all know the art of converting our pain into profits. So that's currently what I'm working on.
Fantastic, Tanzila. And just remind everyone, where are we calling from today? Where are we dialing in from?
I am actually from Pakistan. My work is also based in Pakistan, but currently I'm in Sweden because my work has expanded to Europe as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us. To you, Fareed.
Thank you. I'm Faride Shroff and I'm calling from Hong Kong. I am really proud to be an ambassador for Purple Tuesday, and my disability is a hearing impairment, which has only come on about a few years ago during the COVID years, actually. And it was during the time when everyone was wearing a mask and I couldn't make out what they were saying because lip reading went out of the window. So I had to go and get tested. And that's when I found out that I had a profound hearing loss in one ear and another disability in the other. So although it is non-apparent, there are a lot of challenges I face as a customer. Examples are when I have to still go to the bank and there's a glass in front. I can't hear what they're saying, so I have to ask them to write down numbers for me so I don't make a mistake. So that's just one simple example that comes to my mind. And the reason why I've started Sensational Foundation to collaborate with Purple Tuesday is very much because I've been in this line teaching children with disabilities and realized that people with disabilities, as they grow older, are facing a block in employment. So we are helping candidates to find the right kind of companies to work with and helping companies to open doors and learn more.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you're doing in creating those opportunities for people with disabilities in Hong Kong. That's amazing. I'm going to now ask Martin to introduce himself.
Hi everyone, happy Purple Tuesday. I'm very proud to be an ambassador for Purple Tuesday. I know we got a great day ahead of us. I'm tall, I've got curly hair. I'm from Windsor, so I'm near the King. Effectively, I also am the chairperson for Enablement Consultancy. My disability is 4 years ago. I had my leg removed above knee. Before that, I thought disabled people were looked after. And then I had the harsh reality of realizing people with disability aren't looked after as well as they should be. So I spend half my time in a wheelchair, half my time with sticks. Local challenges, believe it or not, in Windsor of all places, we have one lift to get to 2 levels of Windsor. If it's out of order, I'm not going anywhere, which is a great shame. So every single day I face challenges, and I also know that companies that make a particular effort with me get my loyalty. Tesco's, for example, provide a motorised wheelchair for me when I go shopping. Even though I know Lidl is cheaper, I pay a premium going to Tesco's. So I would encourage all companies to think about the purple dollar, purple pound. This is a revenue gain with effectively potentially 20% of the population with some form of disability. But a great pleasure to be here. Hopefully we'll have some really good points for everyone to enjoy.
Thank you, Martin. And next, can I go to Laura?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And happy Purple Tuesday to everybody. I'm really excited and really proud to be an ambassador. So my name is Laura Noel. My professional life has 2 sides of the same coin. By day, I'm a commercial director for the technical operations in the city of Leverkusen. So I'm calling from Leverkusen, which is located in Western Germany. I'm leading a team of 15, providing commercial services for about 180 people. And I am a leader with borderline personality disorder. So my emotions spike 12 times a day. I use my own lived experience as a leader with BPD to advocate for workplaces and also for inclusive living here in Germany. The barriers that I face as a customer are most of the time not directly impacting me. So not that I have immediate non-accessibility to go anywhere, but afterwards, if it's an environment that is not neuro-inclusive, I can experience exhaustions that can take up to 2 days to recover from, or also have meltdowns in public places that can totally be avoidable. So these are the things that I do experience and I advocate for to work together to make it more accessible.
Absolutely, Laura.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for that. Thank you for that. And yes, we want to talk about the perceptions today of well, what do we mean by accessibility? And neuro inclusion is absolutely something that organizations have to look at. Now I'm going to move on to Shelley. Shelley.
Hi everyone, happy Purple Tuesday, and I am a proud ambassador for Purple Tuesday from Northern Ireland. I have nearly 30 years lived experience of a disability, which is a range of disabilities. At the age of 15, I became unwell and I was confined to bed for 12 years, 4,380 days, and I was a wheelchair user for a decade after that. And it was during that time that I realised that rural County Fermanagh in Northern Ireland is a very, very inaccessible place to live when you want to reintegrate into society. I thought it was great to be lifted upstairs to a nightclub by 4 sexy bouncers, and you go through those times and you realise it's not actually fun. It's dangerous, and if we slipped, then 5 people were in danger. My challenges have been, I've been told to leave restaurants, I've been told to leave classrooms because of my disability. So I advocate for change. I advocate for everybody to be included. And I realised that I couldn't go to nightclubs and to pubs. I didn't want to drink, but I just wanted to socialise. So 6 years ago, I founded a group called Just Us. It's a pun on justice, and it's for adults with disabilities. Because we are so rural, it was to provide safe, inclusive and accessible spaces, and that has just expanded beyond belief. And I'm also a tech startup, so I'm working on an inclusive solution for travel. So, and I also help organisations with their accessibility. So busy bee. I'm about to head to Dubai this evening, and I'm speaking with the Dubai Embassy on Wednesday. So hopefully we can help with accessibility there as well. So that's me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shelley, and thank you for creating those social opportunities in Northern Ireland for adults with disabilities. I think, and I've seen some of your work, and everybody seems to be having a fabulous time. So that's amazing. And finally, we have Jessica.
Thank you. Happy Purple Tuesday, everyone. My name is Jessica Smith. I am originally from Australia, but calling in today from Dubai, where I've been based for the past 7 years. I'm a very proud Purple ambassador, and now very proud to say that I am working with Purple as head of strategic partnerships here in the UAE. As someone who was born missing my left arm, I have the lived experience of wanting to understand my own identity and find my own place in a world where, for me, some of the barriers might not be the same as the others on the call, and they might not be what you expect. I've been told many times that nobody sees my disability, or you don't act disabled, you don't seem as though you're disabled. And so what I did was then suppress all of the feelings that I was having around my disability and some of the struggles that I did have, which internalized a lot of those feelings. And to give you an example, I'm now a mother of 3, not being able to bath my newborn children, not being able to braid my daughter's hair. And those struggles were things that I didn't feel that I was able to share with the wider community because I didn't have a disability that seemed as severe as other people's. And so I had to just get on with life. And it created a sense of anxiety around how I was perceived publicly. I'm also a former Paralympian. I swam for Australia for just shy of a decade. And so some of the barriers and challenges that I have faced is trying to understand my place in this world as a woman living with a disability. And certainly as a customer and a consumer, being told again that nobody really saw my disability, but there were, in a sense of fashion, for example, having to always amend pieces of clothing, and being told that, you know, maybe fashion and that side of the world wasn't necessarily something that I should be interested in. And so over the years, I've realized that obviously adding my voice to this conversation is really important, because there is such wonderful, beautiful diversity within disability, and we need to hear all of those wonderful stories. And so now working here in the UAE in a professional capacity, but also sharing my lived experience, I think I'm able to help change the narrative, especially here in the region, but also share some of those experiences I've had in Australia, both positive and negative. And so I'm incredibly excited to celebrate Purple Tuesday and for all of us to continue working together to impact the progress as we move forward.
Thank you, Jess, and thank you as well for the work that you're doing, helping us get the word out across the region in the UAE, and engaging with the organisations and the communities with disabilities as well, because it is really important that Purple Tuesday speaks to both. From our perspective, we represent the voice and the lived experience of people with disabilities, connecting into the businesses that ultimately have the decision-making powers to make the changes needed. So that's why we're here today, and to celebrate and to recognise where good practices are taking place, but also highlighting and educating others about all the types of barriers that still exist in 2025. So just taking the conversation on a little bit, it would be good if we just had, you know, if we just focused in then on why Purple Tuesday is important to people with disabilities. I think, you know, we've mentioned a few things here together, but from your sense of and an understanding from the communities that you are in and the communities in the countries that you're in, why is Purple Tuesday important to people with disabilities? So let me go to you, Fareed, first.
I think it's important because it's a collective push, which is needed, because it's a topic that is often just swept under the carpet and everyone just says, oh, well, next year we'll see about it. But now, as we get together, I think our voices are amplified and I think we deserve to be heard. So that's my reason.
Thanks. Anybody else? Shelley?
Yeah, well, in Northern Ireland, we are slightly different from the UK. You know, we're behind with our buildings, our infrastructure, and it's a great way to help raise awareness, especially on a global scale, and to know that we are part of that and the word's being spread here. It's brilliant, and for a lot of organisations, they don't actually understand what accessibility is. They think it's opening doors, but to actually get into it and how to include people, it's absolutely fantastic that this movement is, and when they see it's a global issue and a global movement, that definitely helps with the organisations here.
Thank you. Great. Martin?
Yeah, effectively, and why I'm an ambassador, Purple Tuesday, get it. There are a lot of people trying to be mini Purple Tuesdays, but certainly, in all credit to you, Mike, the foundations of Purple Tuesday are for the good. I'd like to elaborate on the mission about everyone, everywhere, should be able to use our client services with ease. And I really feel there is a collective drive to make change, and this change is for the good of everyone. And it can be applied to corporations. This isn't a cost, it's an investment, because by doing this, they will get more revenues from very loyal people with disabilities. I know my own buying I will buy from a company that makes my life easy to do business with. And quite frankly, in reverse, if a corporation doesn't do with a good job for me, they won't ever see me again. And also people I know, I will say about my experience. So I'd like to make that point, but certainly I'm a complete advocate of Purple Tuesday and all the good work, sterling work that's going on.
Thank you, Martin. Jess, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. I will just add to that. I think that in the UAE in particular, it's quite different in the sense that there's so many different cultures. I think there's over 200 different nationalities that call the UAE home. And so with that, you have very diverse understandings about what disability is and how disability presents itself. And so the opportunity that we have here is to help educate, as you so rightly said, Charlene, the community and the business, and bring those two groups together to be able to focus on, well, what is it that can actually motivate and drive change? And as Martin has said, there's a very strong business case. You know, the spending power of people with disability, we know, is phenomenal, beyond 13 trillion per annum. So this is something that businesses need to understand, that, as you said, this is an investment. But when we are able to remove or reduce or eliminate barriers that exist for people with disability and create that level of accessibility, everybody benefits. And so what I'm trying to do here in the UAE by sharing everybody's lived experience is connect all of that and to be able to say that it's also the right thing to do. And I think you'll find that most businesses are wanting to have that connection of, yes, we see the financial side, the numbers and the money and the investment, but it's the right thing to do. And I think if you touch on that and the human element, it allows businesses to be able to understand that at a deeper level. And I think that's what we're all doing so well.
Yeah, definitely. Laura, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And also, I want to add to what Martin just said is including and advocating for people with disabilities is not just a social case that you are obliged to do by law or whatever, but it's a business case. So there's so much purchasing power and talent that people with disabilities bring to the table. And I think if companies do recognize that, that's such a benefit for them. So I also am a very loyal customer if I have a brand that like supports and includes people, and I will stick to that brand because I know it works for me. So there's a lot of retention in the customer base, and I really agree with what the other people have said about that.
Yeah, well, we do know that, you know, the disability community is the most loyal customer demographic. So if when you get it right for that customer, like you've said, Laura, you're going to stay there. You know it meets your needs. You're not moving anywhere, and it's organized. And that's why from me, it's like Purple Tuesday is being supported heavily by the disability communities across the globe, because they are looking for the brands that they want to connect with, that sees them and hears them and values them, and therefore is creating the experiences that is going to make their lives more accessible and inclusive and better. So I see that we are here also to champion when an organization and a brand is getting it right, so that the disability community can see that more clearly and know where to go as well. So it is about, you know, also seeing from the other side. Tanzila, have you got anything you would like to add to that?
Yes, first of all, I completely echo the sentiments of everyone. I like to add that one benefit that sometimes businesses miss out is that people with disabilities do not exist in isolation. They thrive in an ecosystem. So they're not just bringing their own business, they're bringing the business of that ecosystem to these companies. I'll give you an example that if I'm going to a coffee shop, sometimes I would go by myself. Sometimes I would go with a friend who might not have a disability, but they're coming there, we're purchasing 2 cups of coffee, and sometimes it's my birthday and I have a lot of friends and I'm looking for an accessible space. Now, all of my friends might not have a disability. I'm the only one person who decides which organization or which platform gets business And because of my disability, that one lucky restaurant is getting business of maybe at least 20 people. So when we talk about numbers, I like to highlight that it also applies to the fact that being an entrepreneur, if I have to arrange events or if I have to create those collaborations where I'm also bringing in not just numbers but money, businesses can be reminded that you lost business because you're not accessible, and the entrepreneur has that needs. This is why Purple Tuesday is making such a huge difference, because it's igniting these conversations and bringing awareness to these businesses that lose business, one, but they're also daunted by the processes that they have to do, which aren't too many or aren't too complex. So
Mhm.
I really felt my local work in Pakistan changing when these conversations started happening.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we talk about that, Mike, don't we? The impact that businesses not recognizing, as you articulated, Tanzila, the ecosystem that sits around them. They're not in their own. 80% of us will have somebody within our very close network that has a disability, and that influences us, right, with how we spend our money.
Absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely does. And it's been an absolute privilege, by the way, Charlene, to say absolutely nothing for the first 25 minutes. I have said so much already today. But then I'll answer your question. But, for me, this is year 8. And we always knew that Purple Tuesday was global, because what we felt in the UK was happening, whether it was Pakistan, whether it was Hong Kong, whether it was Germany, whether it was UAE, and just seeing today and listening to the stories just reminds me that that's exactly that.
Yep.
Purple Tuesday is global, and I think what is so brilliant is 3 things really. One, that Purple Tuesday has become the voice of disabled people, disabled customers and their families. I think what we've seen today and in the lead up to Purple Tuesday is businesses and organizations being more confident and bolder in making those commitments, and recognizing that they're on a journey, and having the confidence to go on that journey, and not saying we're not perfect, but we actually know we've got to show some intent. And if we show some intent, then people will support us on our journey. And I think the third thing is where we are in society, and Gen Alpha, so our allies, the next generation of people in our society, are going to expect. They are going to expect a world which is more diverse, which is more inclusive, and people will just decide whether they go to brands on that basis. And so I think that Purple Tuesday and the work that you're doing is absolutely positioned to fundamentally support brands and businesses to be more inclusive to people with disabilities and their families, because it matters to society. And all the points that you've made are global points, which
Yeah.
is so fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're all, as we have these conversations over and over again, we recognize that the challenges that we face in Pakistan or in Northern Ireland are the same challenges that we face in the UAE or Hong Kong or Germany. And it's just, there may be slightly different nuances on it, but the challenge are similar, and therefore the solutions will be the same as well. So it's about us being confident to be able to share and raise and spotlight the good practices, and being able to share the solutions to the bad practices or the inaccessibilities that we come across in our day to day. So with that, I think it would be really good if we maybe did shine a little bit of a spotlight in some of the good practices that we come across, because today we're celebrating the good, and so it's really important that we showcase that organizations are getting it right and have got some really fantastic solutions already happening, and where organizations are listening today, these are opportunities for you to adopt these innovations or new ways of doing things that are ultimately more accessible for everyone around them. So who would like to share maybe something that they've come across or they think is really good? Martin, over to you.
This is such a simple one, but has made my life so much easier. So I advise aviation companies and maritime companies. 3 weeks ago, I used a hoist to get into a swimming pool. And my God, it made my life so much easier. Because once I'm in the pool, I'm completely fine. And I just thought this is such an easy way because there are companies that have swimming pools. Obviously, ships have swimming pools. It's just so easy to make sure a hoist is on one of the pools so people with disabilities can actually use the swimming pool. Because once we're in, we're fine. We love it. So that is just a simple solution. What I would say on good practice, and again, I see this a lot, setting up quarterly panels with people with disabilities and able, actually, rather than woolly words, put action plans in place. I'm not going to name anyone because it's public, but a very easy one for corporations. Don't do panel discussions every quarter without action plans. Because it's all nice to show that you're thinking about people with disabilities. But there's no point if there isn't an action plan coming out of that. So that's very strong advice. Not the tick in the boxes, but actually execute on actions. Do the little ones. Make changes step by step.
And I think, Martin, just on that point, in terms of panels and groups, that organisations need to make sure that they are representing all disabilities,
Absolutely.
and the hidden disabilities as well as the visible disabilities, and it becomes a real voice, which again is not difficult to do. But yes, I agree with you.
Thank you. That's very helpful, Martin. Anybody else want to volunteer, or will I?
I'd like
pick on
to talk
someone?
about the MTR, the Mass Transit Railway in Hong Kong, which
Yes.
has made huge strides and making life so much better for all the people with mobility issues. They have come a long way. We work closely with them, guide them, have trainings with the staff. And it is making such a difference to so many people in Hong Kong. So I would certainly say that's a journey I really enjoy, seeing the fruits of that, results of what we've been doing. So that's one
Brilliant.
example I'd like to share.
Thanks, Fareed. And tell us a little bit more about, so what have they done that has improved that experience?
So people who need assistance need to call in advance. That part has to change.
Yes.
They need to plan where they will be getting into the MTR, and arrangements are made around them. So they'll have someone there to assist them, and there are good lifts which actually work, so they can go up and down more easily. Again, there are areas where the wrong kind of people are getting into those lifts, and people with disabilities have to wait there much longer than necessary. So
Yes.
we're working on various aspects of this, but the good part is that they do have ramps to get onto trains. They do have the track for visible disabilities as well. The difficulty there is they have everything on the station, but to get to the station, the roads haven't got it yet. So
Yeah.
like Mike said, it is a journey. but we're all on the right track, I would say.
Absolutely. And to that point, that's what we, and this is why we want Purple Tuesday to exist, so that we can connect the conversations at a community level, so that the train station talks to the, to the retail, that talks into the, the hospitality, and everybody's able to come together and start looking at the whole experience that the individual with a disability is having in the community. But exactly that. It's a start of the journey. It's the changes are already being made. I would love to revisit this conversation in maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time and see what other changes have been made.
I remember we did a session with disabled people a few months ago, and it was about accessing destinations, and what came across that I thought I knew, but it was totally reinforced, is the destination didn't need to be perfect in terms of accessibility, but where there were issues, people needed to be aware of them. But what was fundamental was that people felt able to get to the destination and then get home. And that started all sorts of conversations between destinations and their local public transport providers, and those dots hadn't been joined up before, but made a fundamental difference. So Fareed, I absolutely get the point that you're making there.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody else, Shelley, do you want to
I
join?
can go. As I'm now on my feet with the help of carers, so I have gone through being confined to bed, a wheelchair user, and now I need support. So to some people, it's a hidden disability, but in my hometown, Enniskillen, the changes that have been since I've been a wheelchair user is unbelievable. There's now 3 changing places. When I was a wheelchair user, there wasn't any. And there are things like boating tours, which are sensory and accessible. And there's a real feeling that things are changing for the good, which is really, really good. But again, it's our transport, because we are so rural, that needs changing. But when I was a wheelchair user, there was one wheelchair accessible taxi, and now you can ask for different companies. So you can see it slowly coming together. The only thing I would say is the only permanently open changing place is at the hospital. The other companies, and there's one at the castle, they close. So there's certain things that can be changed and can keep going. It's simple things, and as you did say, it's attitudes. But I would say for Fermanagh, the big thing has been the Just Us that we have set up. It shows people integrating into society. An army of us come out every Monday night. We go on a walk and talk, and that's an accessible walk and talk. So we're like wee ducks walking around the town. And at the start, it was, who is this? There's about 30, 40 people. And what we do is we take a different pub every week. So we start to get them introduced into society. So society mixing with disabled and the community. It's a social aspect. The more that we are seen out, the more things people will do with us, and the more it just becomes normality. So I have noticed a massive big difference in those 5 years. No longer are those people called wheelchair users. No longer are they pitied. They're known as their name because they've got used to people in town, and they're also known as the party goers, and our locals are actually jealous of our social life. So it's about integrating. It's about the more we're out and about, the more you're seen. It definitely has we're changing perceptions. It really are, And if that's happening in rural Fermanagh, that can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And breaking down barriers just by being seen, and how much that is and partying, but showing exactly, I think it's the busting the myths that people with disabilities are just hugely vulnerable and need to be looked after and need to be taken. This is like showing, no, actually, we want to be integrated. We want to come out and have. We want to go out and party as well, like the rest of you. So I do think that is amazing what is happening, and you're showing it in action really by breaking down those barriers. Yeah.
Last Friday we held our first variety performance. So it was just us and friends. So we had all the groups with disabilities, from Down syndrome to our local special and additional needs schools, all showing their talents on stage, and that has had a major impact on the society. So, you know, all I can say is there's only good can come out of it, and the only way is up, really, to be honest. The only way is accessible in the future.
Yeah, and it raises another point about the importance of Purple Tuesday, is that people like you, Shelley, and everyone else, sometimes you just want to be spontaneous and you just want to go out and you just want to be a customer, and actually you should be able to do so. You shouldn't need to ring up and say, in 3 weeks' time I'm going to want to do this. Is it possible, please? And that's a barometer of change. And it's brilliant to hear in Enniskillen, but I imagine it's happening in Germany and the UAE as well. And it's a sign that people are recognizing in hospitality, but other industries, that first and foremost, these individuals are customers who just happen to have additional needs, that if they're met, you unlock that purple dollar, that purple pound, etc. So really important.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, Martin?
You also
So,
unlock an experience. Sorry.
Mike, I want to build on your point, and it's very important for corporations to take the breadth and depth of disabilities. We talk about obviously hidden, and even as a wheelchair user, I think there's a lot of focus on wheelchairs, whereas enablement, we also talk about ableism, autism, ADHD. And it's important for corporations not to just pigeonhole certain sectors of disability, because then it's an injustice for the other people part of the disability community. And I'm doing more work on visually impaired, and it actually opens up experiences for me as well, because obviously my peer group are people with disabilities and we all draw to each other. I went swimming with a blind chap and I actually learned a lot by looking after him, that you don't just shut your eyes and let you experience. It's like people, you don't just sit in a wheelchair and suddenly you can advise. And I would say this definitely for big corporations, that they need to have a blend of people that are able and disabled advising. One of my biggest frustrations is when I see an able person actually saying we've got everything right. And I'm thinking, don't try thinking, because I come back to the point I opened with. 4 years ago, before I had the amputation, I honestly thought people with disabilities were well looked after in the UK. And oh my God, what a shock I had suddenly being in a wheelchair and realizing all these challenges, attitudes as well. So I would say ableism, it's very important, the language we use and the training.
Just to say that, because it rolls off the tongue now, but 83% of disabled people will acquire a disability in their lifetime. And for organizations and businesses, at the point that they acquire their impairment, do you lose them as potential customers? Do you lose them as potential employees? Because at that number, it's hugely significant. 80%, up to 80% of disabled people have a hidden impairment. I will walk in a room, it will take a split second to work out I have a disability, but 4 out of 5 disabled people, you wouldn't know. So you have to change your set of assumptions around what you think accessibility and disability is. And 8% of the disabled population are wheelchair users. I'm a part-time wheelchair user myself. But when people talk to me about, well, it's utterly impossible, it's a grade 1 listed building, etc., etc., I always say, absolutely, I understand the challenges, but tell me what you're doing for the other 92% of the disabled population. Let's start there. So I think it is about getting perspectives, and it's about understanding the art of what is possible through talking to people with lived experience, and then you just build momentum. And I think that's what you and I, Charlene, have seen with Purple Tuesday. What we've been able to do is unlock a sense of momentum, and it's just gone literally so fast, and people go, yeah, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that, and that was the point at the start, and it is going at such a pace. And just look at our conversation today at a global pace.
Exactly. If everybody makes small changes consistently year on year, then the impact is collectively huge for the disability community. So I'm going to come to you, Laura and Tanzila, because you haven't been able to, and Jessica, to share your examples of good practice that you've come across. Laura, come to you first.
Yeah, I was thinking while the others were thinking if I have experienced similar kinds of accessibility, and I have two things I want to mention. First of all, so I do love silent hours in grocery shops and trains. I have always loved them. Also, when I didn't knew I was disabled, which was like 6 years ago, but it's helping me a lot. So I am always, if I have the option, I would always go anywhere by train and not by plane because of the noise. There are also some kinds of earbuds that are not for music or whatever, but just for noise cancellation, that are actually comfortable and that I can wear like over 60 minutes or so. But because like if I'm wearing these for music, it would hurt my ear after 2 hours. Also, another thing that I have thought of is I have a lot of doctor's appointments. I have to go to my therapist once a week, my psychiatrist once a month, and I also have teeth, and I have to go to the dentist. And there are certain platforms which I love using where all of my medical appointments are in one place. And because I am sometimes not very reliable with my scheduling, because I can't always anticipate how I will be feeling, I have to move around all these appointments a lot. And these platforms do help me very, very much to have like access to all of my doctors, to also get my teeth checked and not only focus on my disability, which is BPD. And I really love online booking, whatever. Is it a restaurant, a doctor, whatever? I have these platforms, I will use them. And if you have also good practices with using them, uploading documents or sending me messages, I will come back to you. I will come back to your restaurant if you send me a confirmation of whatever, or if the customer service is good via chat function or whatever, I will come back. And I have that economic power. And also what Tanzila was saying, I will bring my friends, and I have a lot of friends with the same disability, so we will all be joining you in your restaurant or in your shop, wherever online booking is possible.
Yeah, I think the digital space is greatly becoming the biggest transformation for the disability community. And when people get it right, organizations get it right, and they make it accessible for everyone to be able to engage with that content, engage directly with them from a customer service perspective, like what Laura has said. I think we are seeing huge strides in terms of the experience for everyone, and people with disabilities in particular, being able to access information and services online. Tanzila, have you got anything you would like to add? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, hi again. So I was also wondering that good practices may start from like putting in good policies by companies, but they also extend all the way to attitudinal changes and what your intention is when you're trying to implement those. And I was actually thinking about this one story from Mexico. So I'm a traveler. I like to travel blog from the accessibility lens, and currently I'm also auditing. And even in audits, I like to highlight the attitudinal changes that a customer service can reflect. I'll give an example. I wanted to experience the hot air balloon over Teotihuacan in Mexico, and by no means any YouTube video could tell me that that would be accessible, not possible at all. When I called a local company in Mexico that I want to do this, they said, okay, listen, we're not accessible, but we're gonna figure it out. So why don't you just come and see what happens? Now, once I reached there, they spoke to me, they had a conversation with me on what's possible. Am I comfortable being carried into the basket or not? And all of these things made a difference because we worked hand in hand and we came up with a solution. If you've experienced the hot air balloon, you'll know that the timing is very short, the basket is there, smoke is being filled into the balloon, and you have to just get in immediately and off you go. In my case, that was being complicated. I had to be put in. So the solution that we both found out was that we found two crates of empty crates. We put a chair inside the basket, and I was transported hopping from two other chairs. And this is a solution that happened on ground instantly within like maybe 10 minutes. The crates were being brought in and all. And that wasn't it. I was able to experience once we landed, which is always a random place anywhere. Uh, there was a there was a van carrying my wheelchair following the hot air balloon because they knew once we land, the wheelchair has to be brought to me. So that was a complete customer experience that I had from like end to end. And that really got me thinking that they're not trained. They don't have a policy. They're doing it because I'm a customer and I want to experience the same thing just like everyone else. And that wasn't it. It even extended to the fact that I'm a Muslim. So on landing, everyone had champagne. They got orange juice for me. So that's a fantastic example that companies can learn from, and I've been talking about them ever since then. I've been definitely going back. I'm telling other people. So this is like a beautiful connection that you can build from experiences, but it all boils down to good intention and how much are you willing to be inclusive. It's inclusive leadership, and companies that have that, they never lose customers. They always have loyalty with them, and it just goes on and on.
Yeah,
I think
just
you
listening to
couldn't.
you, I want to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, that's amazing. And it just shows you, with just a little bit of time, thinking a
Yeah.
little bit outside the box, anything can happen. And I think this is the, perfect example of an accommodation being made to meet the needs of a customer, regardless of what those customer needs are. So I thank you, Tenzila. That's a brilliant case study of it in action. Jess.
Yeah, that was such an amazing example. So thank you so much. I think something that's slightly different here in the UAE is the way in which leadership sort of mandates a lot of the things that need to happen or that will happen here. And so recently, the leadership have said that they want the UAE, Dubai in particular, to be the most accessible city in the world. Now, of course, that's a huge statement to make, but what's so exciting about living here is the willingness for people who want to learn, they want to understand, they want to move forward progressively and quickly. And so in order to do that, one of my recently appointed roles is an advisor at Dubai airports. And this has never been done, as far as we know, at any other airport in the world, where people with disability are sharing their lived experience to co-create the journey for customers and travelers who live with a disability. Now, we have a long way to go because we've all been able to identify many barriers in the touch points throughout the airport. But what's so exciting and I guess empowering for myself and the other advisors and the entire disability community here in the UAE is that we're being listened to. Not only do we have a seat at the table, but our voices are genuinely being heard to create impactful change. And, you know, I think sometimes the region has been sort of labelled as backward when it comes to talking about disability. And certainly in the times that I've been here in the past 7 years, there has been so much progress. And I think we have to be excited about those opportunities. And certainly in this role, what we will see and what has been touched on before is making sure that there's a connection from the airports to transportation to hospitality, hotels, destinations, and linking all of that together so that the whole journey is something that is empowering for anyone, regardless of what their disability is, regardless of what accommodations might need to be made. So Tenzila, the example you just gave is so perfect for that, because once you're able to reach that destination, you want to be able to have the same lived experiences as other travelers. And when we incorporate the voice of lived experience and the different lived experiences of disabilities, we open organizations up to thinking about different perspectives and designing through the lens of disability, not trying to fix things afterwards, you know, has been mentioned by everyone on the call already. And so I'm very excited to not only be an advisor, but to be in a region at the moment where we're going to see very fast progress. And I think the fact that they have genuinely decided that this is something that needs to be co-created is setting a precedent for the rest of the world. So watch this space. And I hope that it is something that then filters through to airports all around the world, because we know that so many travelers living with disability often will cancel their trips. Once they've made all of those bookings, the stress and the anxiety of just being in an airport space can become so overwhelming that they decide they don't want to travel. So again, going back to all the things that we've touched on about the business case, the right thing to do, bringing all of this together is what Purple Tuesday does so brilliantly, and connecting all of those dots through the conversation so that organizations can understand, well, we can start small and we can continue to learn and continue to make commitment year after year, so that we all know that this isn't just one endpoint. It isn't just a compliance tick box. It's something that we're on the journey with together. And I think the more organizations learn from one another and talk to one another and see what they've been able to implement and commitments that they've been able to actually follow through with, then it creates that entire journey for the businesses to be able to also be part of as well. And I think that's what Purple Tuesday is fundamentally about, making an opportunity to bridge all of those gaps that we know have existed, but we work towards mending them.
Definitely.
Jessica, you know what is really beautiful about what you've just said is that they are taking your suggestions. Nothing about
Yes.
us without us is what I
Exactly.
give as my regular advice to any company. Don't assume things about us. And here, Dubai Airport is doing just that. They are listening to
And they
you,
genuinely are.
making the right
Exactly.
changes. Yeah, so beautiful.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for all of the amazing things that you've shared. And there has been so many good examples and also, you know, solutions that are also being put forward for organizations to take and learn and explore and investigate a bit further about what, you know, how they can, you know, bring this into their own ways of working. We're going to have to wrap up now, and I could talk to you all for hours on the subject, but I'm also very aware that we all have to dash off to all of our different additional events and celebrations that we have today. So what I would like is just if we could each just go around the room and just share one word of what Purple Tuesday means to you, and you know, how it makes you feel today, of all days as we are here celebrating together. Martin, I'll start with you.
Very easy. Embrace us, and it will be good for everyone, and you will see your revenues flow.
Brilliant. Laura.
I would say I feel as a part of the ecosystem that was just mentioned, but part of a bigger society and everybody else, if I am being included. For example, when I want to go to a shopping center and there is a place for somebody like me, I will go there again and not feel excluded, but included.
Fantastic. Shelley.
I would say it's one big community helping each other, and that community is expanding, and the more it expands, the more it helps, so the more people we have under our wings. And I just feel that it's just one small step, no matter how small, it's still a step in the right direction. But it's a ripple effect, and it's more than a ripple effect, it's actually a movement, and I just think fantastic.
Thank you. Tinsila?
I would say respect and dignity, because the region that I come from, Pakistan, disability is treated from a very charitable mindset, and that just reduces the entire community to an alien group that are just there. But with these efforts of Purple Tuesday and the ambassadors, I can see that the effort is towards integrating them with respect and treating them just like everyone else, and creating a more respectful exchange of ideas and goods. And being a customer just fulfills that. You're here to purchase a product and going back home, and you want to enjoy it just like everyone else. There is no rocket science here. So I'm glad to be part of this narrative and to be alive at this time, to be part of this movement. And I know that the results will be here soon, and we all will get to enjoy them. Maybe in Mexico together.
Maybe in Mexico. Farida?
I think it's so important to be part of this movement because we can see the change happening, and it will continue to happen faster with all of us working together. We are all connected, even though we are in different parts of the world, and that every person should consider disability as a part of being human.
Thank you. And Jess?
I feel empowered, and I know that Purple Tuesday is empowering businesses as well. So happy Purple Tuesday to everyone, and let's continue the celebrations globally.
Thank you. And I just want to say, Mike, you know, hearing from all of you today, it really does make me proud at what we are doing together. And, you know, the words that you've each shared, you know, embraced, included, community, respect, connected, empowered, you know, all of these words really just, you know, it's the work that we're doing day in and day out so that we create the feelings of the words that you have described today. And I just hope that everyone who's engaging with us today as part of these celebrations are feeling these feelings as well. And without further ado, I just want to say thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Happy Purple Tuesday, and let's continue the celebrations today, and tomorrow let's start planning for 2026.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.